discussing that.
Please rise for invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Is the pastor? Oh, there you go. I just saw you there.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we begin this session tonight, this council meeting, Father God, I just want to just reflect on this past week. Father, I know many of our city residents, city citizens, Lord, are going through a lot of difficult situations, transitions, and frustrations. And Lord, I pray for them tonight and ask that you would help them as they navigate life in these next few days, weeks, and months. Father, I pray for this city leadership, Father, and all the ones that assume roles over this city, and that you would give them the guidance and the wisdom, Father, as they help our city put back together, as they help our city be able to get back into some kind of a sense of normalcy. Father, I pray that you would just help us tonight, Lord, as we go through the city council agenda. Father, I pray that your will would be done. Father, give each one of these council members, every person that's present here tonight, a blessing, Father, and give us the guidance from you that we need. We ask all these things in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our thanks to Pastor Mike Swindle of First Baptist for the invocation. Would the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Foley.
Here.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Gratiot.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stillman.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. We have a quorum. Item 4 under Hurricane Ian update is resolution number 22-32, resolution of the City of Port Orange, Village County, Florida, pertaining to Hurricane Ian budget adjustments for fiscal year 2022-2023, providing for approval of 2022-2023 budget adjustments, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. That has John McKinney's handwriting all over it, it seems like. Can I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve resolution number 22-32.
A second.
I have a motion and several seconds. I'll recognize Councilman Tremont, seeing as my time with him is running short. We've got just a few meetings left with you. The item is open and on the floor for discussion. And Wayne, I wanted this to be a all-encompassing discussion because first of all, we can hear a lot of things and share a lot of information. And it is all justification for the couple of million that we're about to spend anyway. So, Wayne, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. If there's any technical questions related to the actual total of the dollars, the finance director will be happy to cover that. I know you talked about having me do a broad conversation of where we are with the hurricane recovery and efforts. So I'll start with that, and echoing what the pastor said to start with. First and foremost, what's most important to us is our citizens and our businesses that are suffering. It was a terrible storm. Most people have said it's probably the worst one we've ever had. We had a lot of people lose things. We had a lot of suffering in this community, and that's very important to us to do the best we can to get everything back up and as together as we can as fast as possible. I've heard it called anything from a 200 to a 500-year storm. I think it depends on whether you're referring to it from a rainfall amount or a wind amount. Clearly worse over on the southwest side from the wind side. In addition to the people that we care about and the people we're trying to help and serve as we go forward, I think it is important to acknowledge the staff of the city. We have 500 people who, many of whom have spent 10 plus hours a day for the last week working nonstop all over the city trying to help, trying to recover. Many of these people had damages to their own homes. There were people who worked for days and didn't get a chance to get back, and we had people with holes in their houses with leaves and debris inside, water inside, who were continuing to work. They were dedicated to the people of this community. They stepped up, they found solutions. It was impressive watching the command staff and the Emergency Operations Center and the people in the field make decisions. Without our employees, we wouldn't be where we are today. They are continuing to work 10 plus hour days trying to help this community to get moving forward. We're obviously in a very fluid situation. Things are changing. Information I may have right now.
Be careful how you use that word fluid right now.
So things may be different tomorrow as we move forward. So it's always ongoing. The number of things without power, the number of things that are blocked or in need of repair is always changing. Just quickly on the storm itself. So I've heard anywhere from 12 to 25 inches of rain in the area and 50 to 90 mile an hour wind gust. It clearly was more of a rain event than most of the storms we have. So we're thinking as we go forward, this is going to be not as much of a blue tarp storm as it's going to be flooded homes and recovery inside the homes kind of storm. So it makes it a little different than what we've seen in the past, because we're used to the wind event storms where there's a bunch of branches and trees and blue tarps for years to come. The rest of what I want to go over, I've got it grouped by topic that are what I understand are some of the most important things to the community and the council. And then I've got at the end just a couple of general things that didn't fit in. But first and foremost is debris removal. Basically, at this point, for those people who have the water out of their house, most people want to know, when is this stuff getting out of my yard? So we have under contract Crowder Golf. They have been assessing the community since Monday. Their trucks, if some of you came in down City Center past the annex, you saw the trucks sitting out there now. So the trucks are here in Port Orange. They're being certified by our monitoring company, which is Thompson Consulting Services. They are going to certify the trucks. At the same time, we have a couple city trucks and some city employees who we will also certify so that they can handle public property cleanup to expedite that while Crowder Golf's working on the private properties. We don't have an exact start date. We believe they will be out in the community starting Thursday doing debris removal. They will be working off of a grid system like you saw in the past for Matthew and Irma, where you can show people, as certain neighborhoods are going to be first and certain neighborhoods will be later down the road, but the map will at least show you what parts of the city that we're in, where the first passes have been completed, and it will allow our citizens to see as we're getting closer to their areas and as we bring the second passes in. I don't think you can ever emphasize enough when it comes to debris removal, and we put this out on social media a lot. Don't commingle the debris, keep the debris separated. They will not pick it up if you've got carpet with branches together or home trash. Keep the debris separated. Don't put it in the street. Don't block mailboxes. And so we'll continue to keep that message out there to be sure that it's something that we can get as quickly and as efficient as we can do. We're going to be doing the same thing we've done in the past. There's going to be a city self drop-off site at the Public Works Yard, which we believe will be open probably Thursday, for people who can either have a small enough amount to throw in your own pickup, you just want to drive it over there and drop it off, so you don't have to wait on somebody to come through. You have to be a resident to do that, but we've done that in the past and found that very effective for some people who just want to go, I can take it over there myself and drop it off. So we expect that to happen later this week.
How many sites do we have?
We have that one site's at the Public Works Yard. We have a principal site that's off Bruner in the area of Bruner we bought recently behind the police station. That's going to be our principal debris site. So that's where the Crowder Golf haulers are going to be bringing. They're going to put the landscape debris there. They're going to bring some construction debris and compact it there so that it's more efficient. So that's where you'll see a lot of the debris pile this year. So it's not going to be where we'd had it in the past. It'll be on that site back there behind the apartment complex.
You email us addresses, please.
We will, yes, sir. Waste Pros started back this week with their regular pickups. The landfill is being inundated. There's big traffic jams trying to get in and out. One of the things we've heard is they probably can't get the regular landscape debris that they typically pick up on Wednesdays because they can't get it into the landfill tomorrow. So there's going to be an issue probably with that. They're also, because there's so many, the volume of the trash that's being put out for regular trash, they'll probably be later in the day getting to people because it's just harder to get to it all. So I noticed myself when I was home at lunch, my trash is usually picked up before lunch. It was still there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're out, they're working, they're on their routes, but they will be probably taking a little bit longer for the next couple of weeks until we get through the initial.
It's harder to get
debris
around, and there's more to pick up.
Yep.
The next topic is infrastructure. That's probably as far as the critical components of what makes up the city and the key services we provide. Our water and sewer plants are fully operational. We did have, at the height of the storm, about 70 of our lift stations that were out of power. We're now down to only 2 that don't have FPL power on them. We have not been able to do assessment of damage of every one of them yet because some of them were submerged, so we'll get in there and see what the damage is when we get in there. We took some tanker trucks to move sewage around in the toughest or hardest hit areas, but right now our utilities are up and functioning. The stormwater system, all of our pump stations were lowered. Every pond that we could lower ahead of time, we did do that. However, due to the length of the rain, the amount of rain, the high water in Rose Bay, Spruce Creek, and the river, there really wasn't anywhere to put it once it started coming up. So at the high tides, we started experiencing challenges. But we had spent a good bit of money in working on trying. So, yes, sir.
Sorry, I hate to keep interrupting you, Wayne. I just want to ask questions on topic so I don't forget. So in spite of some folks' concerns out there, we did not have any sewage leakage or block ups or anything of that nature, correct?
There were areas where the lift stations weren't pumping. There was stuff coming up out of some of the manhole covers. So
Okay.
we never lost water. We never had boil water notices. The water system was full. There were sections where the lift stations that had no power in submerged areas could not hold everything. And then we may, as far as the roads, all of our major roads are open now. We have some side streets that are not, there are roads in the city that still have sections that are impassable or have standing water, but the major roads are open, and all the signals are on FPL power with the exception of Commonwealth and US 1. There's still some submerged areas, and that way that's where the lift stations we have that don't also have FPL power, that's the area where we still have submerged issues, and so that's the only place that doesn't have full power back when it comes to the roadways. We pushed, I think the numbers, about 60 trees during the height of the storm and the immediate recovery. About 60 trees were down blocking roads that we had to get out there and cut and shove off the roads. So that's a pretty good amount of tree for a rainstorm to have to clear out of the way to get emergency vehicles and response vehicles in and out of the area. As far as power, everybody knows that's FPL. It's not the city of Port Orange, but to what we could do to help them. Most of you know we cooperated. They had that substation that's down at Dunlawton near the post office, got submerged and was out of service for a while, and we spent most of Saturday working with them to figure out a way to get in there. We closed off the road and did a lot of work to help them get that station back up and operating. That was successful. Also, as part of our relationship with them, they did bring 2 customer service sites to Port Orange. I don't know that anybody else had to. We were able to get one behind the Burger King and one up by Wawa and Goodwill, and they spent 2 days at least, Sunday and Monday, giving out water, charging phones, and answering people's questions about their power. So we did our best to cooperate. From what I understand, from what I've seen, they say that they're 98% restored in Volusia County.
99.8.
Keeps going up from the morning.
Yeah.
As far
Their
as
goal was 95% by midnight tonight, so they're well ahead of their schedule.
As far as city facilities, most of our buildings are structurally sound. We didn't have any major structural issues. We've had roof leaks. We had a decent number of roof leaks. Fire Station 75 is still on a generator out there. There's a unique issue with that in that facility. Our government TV studio had some electrical damage. The power kept going off, and we were shifting back and forth from generator to power to generator to power. They did today fix it. We were originally concerned we weren't going to be able to get the actual production going, but it's on YouTube. We don't have it on the Spectrum channels. I think that's a Spectrum issue from what I understand, but they were today able to get, at one point the only camera that was working was the one that was zoomed in on the mayor. So we would have had to run the meeting with that one camera. All of our parks are still closed. The golf course is still closed. We've canceled our programs through Wednesday at the parks. During the course of the storm, we canceled 30 events or rentals, 82 athletic programs, and 69 partner programs. So we lost quite a bit of recreation opportunities during the period of this time. Our wastewater plant, probably one of the bigger, the wastewater plant operations building flooded. The maintenance building and our laboratory flooded. The water went down. Our guys that were out there working in the operations wastewater plant continued to work even in the water, cleaned it up themselves and stayed there. There is a project, an existing CIP project to do better in that building. It was supposed to be done where we were going to create bunks and make it easier for them to stay there so they would be able to work nonstop and have a place to sleep and then be able to come back. We're probably going to need to modify that project because we're going to need to get that higher in the air. We can't have them in that same low lying in the future. So you'll probably see us come back to you with change orders on that project to do a better job on that facility. The lab's been relocated temporarily over to the water plant right now and temporary facilities until we can get it back. That's basic for the public damage. It says what we're estimating is about $1.3 million in damages to our facilities, and that includes piers and docks in addition to the parks. Bushman, I think, is the only facility we haven't been able to really get all the way through and determine all the damage in it. So there's a couple of lift stations that we haven't been able to fully assess either. But at this point, we're looking at about $1.3 million in damage to our own property. We also did private damage assessment, so that got done as part of the effort working with the property appraiser to get emergency declarations. As they went out and studied the whole city, we estimate a little under 1,400 structures had some form of damage, with an estimate of about $54 million in damage to private properties. 77%, a little over 3/4 of the properties were in 3 key areas of the city. So most of the damage we saw, one area is where Sugar Mill Elementary, the neighborhoods that are to the west of it going over towards Nova. There's a series of neighborhoods in that area, Springwood Square and those areas. That was a fairly heavily hit area, so that's where one of the major concentration is. If you're on Taylor, Spruce Creek Road, south of Taylor, the east neighborhoods, as you go down there before you get to All Children's Park, there was a lot of neighborhood in there that had a lot of
Cambridge,
flooding.
Hamlet.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And those have flooded before. That was the area where on Thursday night we had FWC airboats going in and pulling people out Thursday night and Friday, pulling people out of the neighborhoods when we went through there. And then so the other area, the area of Nova Road, so south of Publix. If you're going down Nova Road, the neighborhoods that are on Nova Road before you get to Spruce Creek, so Sleepy Hollow and Deep Forest and all those neighborhoods that line Nova going south of the Publix. Those were the 3 areas that account for about 75% of the structural damage that we saw when we were out there. About half of them appear to be flood damage. So that's going to be the worst because there was water inside the houses. The other half, so about 600 or so have water intrusion. 600 had what would be more minor damage, roof, cosmetic damage, still damage, but not damage to the same level as having water in your house. The only destroyed structure we had was the Chuck E. Cheese at the Pavilion. We believe they had roof drains clogged. It caused that back wall to collapse. So that appears to be the only fully damaged or destroyed structure. From a communication standpoint, we got about 350 calls to our citizen hotline. In the beginning, it was sandbags and when are the roads going to be closed, followed up with what are you going to do about the flooding, when am I going to get my power back on, when are the roads going to be open. So it was a fairly standard, but about 350 calls came in. We constantly posted to social media and the website. There is a hurricane or storm update on the front page of the website. There was a period there when we were in and out of internet where we couldn't get to the website, but we were constantly putting social media messages out. Early on, it was information on sandbags and road closures. It's shifted over to what to do during a storm. Don't walk into standing water. Don't touch live power lines. It's now shifted over to post-storm, so we're don't commingle your debris. How to handle mold in your house. It's their safety tips moving forward. How to find FEMA assistance. Those kind of things are what we're doing for communication. And then I'll conclude just a couple of things that were that don't really fit the categories neatly. But the public safety departments, between our police department, fire department, and the FWC people that were here, we pulled about 200 people out of our neighborhoods on Thursday night and Friday. Probably unprecedented for Port Orange ever to see that amount of people. Airboats
Deep
going in,
water
pulling people out, deep water rescues.
Yes.
The YMCA gave us buses, so as we pulled them out, we'd put them on YMCA buses and send them up to the shelters. Originally, we were sending them to Mainland and DeLand. Now they're at the Ocean Center. One of the things that we did do after, as they were getting ready to leave the shelters, they asked our staff, as people were leaving, to go check their houses when we were doing damage assessment to let them know whether they could come back to their homes or not. So we did that as part of the sheltering effort. One of the things that was unique to this storm, I think, was the Moody Bridge or the Williamson Bridge, depending on how you see it. That bridge was under 4 or 5 feet of water for over a day. I don't think that's ever happened at that level. For a period of time, I think if you lived in the southwest part of the city, you were cut off completely. Eventually, the water lowered and you could come around the far back ways, but you could not get to Water's Edge and Cypress Head and all those neighborhoods easily for several hours, and for a while you couldn't get there at all. The second closure, the Dunlop Bridge. So we're used to closing the bridge when the winds get high. And then when the winds go down, the bridge opens up. So we did do that. And then the high tide came back in and we had to close the bridge again because the Port Orange landing side of it went underwater. Another unique thing. I don't think that's ever happened before. We had to close the bridge, not because of wind, but because you couldn't get through it on the other side. The fire department responded to about 600 calls in the 5 days of the storm, which is about 3 times the number of calls that they would normally get during that time. So I don't know if you heard that. Anytime you were outside, a lot of times it was quiet, you could hear sirens way more than you would hear them.
All day.
Yeah, all day, all night, just nonstop sirens. So a lot of heavy work on the part of responding, both fire and police. There are still areas that have high water. Most of it has started to recede back to the fluid nature of the storm. This morning there was more of it.
Use that word again.
Colony of the Woods is down to like one street in the back that may be hard. South winds, the back side, the west side or east side of south winds, Brandy Hills, the Bruner Madeline area. Several of them have gotten better today. When I first put this together last night, they still had higher water, but it's starting to get better. The last major road we had that didn't open, Dunlawton at Spruce Creek down there by the post office, was the last of our major roads that we let the water get through to get in there. We did really well working together with the county. We had a very positive relationship. We had been out to their EOC several times prior to the storm, doing practice and exercises and building relationships. We had city employees assigned over 40 hours, I think we did over 80 hours total in the EOC. So having people out there got us a lot of response. That together we partnered. That's how we got the airboats to get the people out of those neighborhoods. FWC, we picked that up it was within an hour that solution came up and we got them out there pulling people out of the water. So it was a really solid partnership. We were on all the calls with them. We turned in our situation reports to them. We got our damage assessment in. So as far as they have a big organization, they have a big emergency management organization. It's important to us as a city to have that kind of power above us to support as we go through emergencies. And I think we have a really good relationship with the county and their emergency management staff to make sure that the Port Orange residents, they pay taxes to the county too, and our Port Orange residents got that benefit from both organizations during the course of this storm. We will be doing a formal after-action report in the upcoming weeks. We're going to let people finish the recovery and get through the recovery process and relax a little bit. We'll sit down and go through the process. So this isn't intended to be a critique. There are going to be some things we find we can do better. And anytime you have an event like this, we'll find ways to do better. We'll come up with capital projects that'll help us be more resilient going forward, and we'll bring that result to you Christmas or the beginning of the new year, likely, as we go forward. Also going forward, we don't have a formal social service type function here, but the clerk's office is coordinating volunteers and donations. So if you get anybody calling you and asking you, how can we help the people of Port Orange, Robin will take that and get them to the right place going forward. Our finance staff is working with the Public Works and Utilities staff to coordinate FEMA coordination to get our reimbursements back. We met today with our consultant who's going to help us with that to ensure that we follow the rules so we maximize the amount of reimbursement we get back for the cost that we put into it. I'm done. Again, I want to recognize that we are aware that many of our families are suffering, that many of our people in our community suffered damage. They're stressed. It's very understandable that tempers will be tight. We appreciate it. I think we saw lots of people in Port Orange come together and help each other out despite the stressful situation. People are working to help across the board. Agencies have been asking how we can help. I appreciate the people of the community's understanding as we tried to get through this event and help each other. And I, again, have to thank the staff. I watched a number of people. We had people whose houses were gone. We had a police officer show up, bring his family into the station, no house, and then turn around, put his uniform on and said, how can I go out and help somebody? We had multiple people in multiple departments in the same situation, houses damaged, standing here going, what do I need to do to go help the people of Port Orange? They have been doing hours and hours out there trying to clean things up and help and make things better. They're extremely proud of them. They're proven why we've got them here. We have the best people here to take care of the city. I appreciate everybody's patience and cooperation as we go forward. Any feedback from council on what you think we need to do. I appreciate all of your insights during the course of the storm to help make sure we did things and got the message out. And that concludes my general overview. And if you have any questions specifically to the budget amendment, John or I will try to answer those.
I am sure that we'll have plenty to say and plenty to do in the coming weeks and months, and certainly it'll start right now. I do want to frame the conversation by saying that We started doing annual town halls in January of this year. We'll be doing it again in January. And I think the timing will be just right because we'll have after-action reports. And when we get people together in that town hall, they'll want to hear some of those answers, some of the things that we're working on. And then we can also get feedback from everybody at that time as well on what went right and what went wrong in the individual neighborhoods from their standpoint. And if we want to be able to make sure that everybody's seeing what we're seeing as well. And believe me, we've gotten a lot of feedback, so I appreciate that, Wayne. Why don't we start with, on this end, with Drew. Do you have any questions or comments to make in regards to the report or anything else to do with our Hurricane response?
Not particularly. I know I'd reached out to Wayne a couple times with different things going on, and he got right back to me, whatever. In the, Wayne, were the lift stations that were down, I know I got a family member that lives on North Brighton, and North Brighton and Cambridge Acres there suffered some pretty significant flooding, and Brittany and North Brighton, he said there was some sewage backup. I rode my bike through there the other day, and you could still smell it, and there was like toilet paper and items in the street. I guess it came up from the sewers or whatever, so there was some backup in that Cambridge area. And then I guess the further you go south on Spruce Creek Road, I think some of the flooding was, it reached down there further than it ever has. So I've never seen, I took a bike ride today and yesterday, and I've never seen so much furniture stacked on roadside. So what did you say, 600 plus houses had flood damage?
Approximately, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the proof's out there because I've just never
at
seen,
least.
I've never seen furniture
At
and
least.
carpet stacked like this during any storm. So it's just sad that this event did so much destruction. It's just unbelievable how quickly that rain just kept coming, and you know, the helpless feeling that people that flooded sitting there watching it come up into their house. I just can't imagine
And they had nowhere to go.
what they went through.
Nowhere to
I've
go.
been in my home for 25 years, and we've never had standing water in the street during any storm, and the water was ponding up into my driveway. So we didn't have any flood damage, but I had never seen that in 20. Now we're there 26 years. Just unbelievable amount of water. It's just staggering the damage. Just unreal.
Let's keep in mind that this storm was historic.
Oh,
This wasn't just another hurricane.
yeah.
For all the hurricane veterans in this city that remember Francis, with all the
Charlie.
water that came from
Yeah.
Francis,
Yeah.
the wind that came from Charlie,
Yeah.
and the wind that came from Gene as well. If you wrap all that together, I know that we got more, as much water as we got for Francis, and that was the worst one we've ever had.
Yeah.
This was almost 2 times that.
Well, and just from a personal experience, I lost every single tree and bit of landscaping in my yard in 2004, and the trees that I planted that were growing, and they're gone now. So I have no trees in my yard again.
Keep going.
Yeah.
What- Any questions or anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, I'll skip down to this end. Reed, let me preface this by saying that Reed Foley is speaking from personal experience when it comes to a flooded home. So we're no different up here. 3 of us had water come into our homes, and yours was the worst, my friend. And my heart goes out to you and your family.
We're fine, honestly. It was just a couple inches of water, and we were so blessed that I was able to get it out of there quickly. And it's hard to feel bad for myself when I looked across the street. A neighbor of mine who's in her 80s, and she had over a foot of water in her house. It was unbelievable what we experienced there in an area that's it's not low lying. We're not in a flood zone, and so it just remarkable. But my heart goes out to all of the residents who've been affected by this. The thing that, out of all tragedies, it seems like, in all situations like this, you end up realizing how blessed you are and what really is important, and you realize how amazing the community is. I watched neighbors with homes flooded go across the street to help neighbors with homes slightly more flooded. You just saw so many things that were touching. I heard stories from our fire chief, our police chief, from Public Works and Parks, of our employees going that extra mile and putting in extra hours, like Wayne mentioned in his report. Yeah, you talk about an officer comes in who's in a really bad situation, suits up, says, "Where can you send me?" I mean, it is touching and moving to realize that we have an amazing community of people. We have amazing employees, staff, who will go above and beyond when they're called on to do so. And we received that call last week. I'm proud of the efforts that the city's making. The report's very interesting. Wayne, one thing I did think I saw something about parks. Actually, I know you'd mentioned in your report. I know it's very dynamic, not fluid. It's dynamic, not fluid.
Good choice of words.
Yeah. I think parks, there's some that open today, correct?
It apparently, in an effort to not be outdone by FP&L, setting a target and outdoing it, the city's park staff we expect to have leagues starting up, I think, Thursday, but according to what's out there now, Karasi, City Center Sports Complex, Spruce Creek Road, Willow Run, and Riverwalk Park are back open now. So thanks to your park staff for exceeding efforts and everybody that helped as part of that, getting them open.
Excellent.
We were thinking Wednesday. They beat it by a full day. So and get back. So little by little, we'll keep bringing them back on as they come, and then we'll be posting that online as we get them open.
Yeah. But yeah, just my final thoughts on this is as we recover from this, I can't wait to see what we can learn from it and how it can improve. I know that they say this is a once in a 200-year, 500-year storm, and to me that's all just words out in the air, and they don't mean anything because
it happened.
Once every 5.
Yep.
Ask how many people. What's the odds of getting struck by lightning, and how many people get struck twice? All right. I mean, the point is that we did a really good job in a lot of areas, and it never hurts to reanalyze and say what can you do better in any business, and especially when you're talking about people's homes and properties and lives. But I just want to make sure I express my gratitude to everyone. Like I said, from park staff, our Public Works people. I heard some real stories from Public Works and Lynn's crew. Of what they had to deal with, our police, our fire, our first responders, our department heads, Wayne, everyone, just y'all put in a lot of extra hours because you needed to, and I know a lot of Port Orange is extremely thankful, and I want to make sure that I express that gratitude on their behalf.
Chase, I know you already interjected for some. I want to get with you, see what else you had, but before that, I know you've been impacted as well. And my blessings to you and your family as well. But what else do you have?
Thank you. Appreciate it. And the calls from everybody communicating and offering help was greatly appreciated. Can you, Wayne, would you mind going over? You and I talked about a lot of folks have been asking about Colony in the Wood. Would you mind just kind of recapping our conversation on how their stormwater system works? What is private? What's the city's role in that? What can we do to assist? What did we do to assist? What has the county? I understand county has at least some drainage abutting the property around there as well. Can you recap that for me and some of the folks of the public?
And if I get
Please.
something wrong, Lynn will help me with it. But so their drainage system is private. It's privately maintained. Their drainage then outflows into the county's B19 canal. That canal it filled up. It was moving, but it was moving into Spruce Creek, and it filled up. That's why Willow Run had flooding we'd never seen in areas in there before. They're on that same canal ultimately on the way down, so it didn't have anywhere to go. They were in a bowl. It's a very low-lying area in that to begin with. So a low-lying area with private drainage and the outfall that would normally help them was full of water from everywhere else, moving a lot of water through, and so that caused the flooding in that area. So it's a private system. We did rescues. We sent the FWC boats were in there pulling people out, and we had fire and police and other personnel in the area for the last 3 days ferrying people back and forth to their homes. So some of them just wanted to go turn off the breakers. Some of them wanted to go check things. Some people were leaving to get food. Some were coming back. But we were assisting in getting people in and out of that area for several days. So That's most of what we've been doing in there. We were able to get in, we weren't able to get in and do the damage assessment yet, but we've had at least public safety officials in there.
And so going forward, and by the way, first of all, what I should have said, I appreciate all the communication throughout, and sometimes it was very difficult with the phone dropping constantly. I never had that difficult time getting service, but your staff, whenever I was able to communicate with some of those folks, they were on point. So, you know, to have to handle something like this, these are things that you just can't prepare for. There's nothing you can do to really prepare for something like this. So I have, in regards to Councilman Foley's comment, you do really get a chance to see how blessed you are, and you get to see the best in people. Unfortunately, you also get to see the worst. It's the storms have a way of doing that, bringing out the best and the worst of folks. So compliments to you and your staff during this time. But bringing it back to the question of private storm drainage, I brought it up a couple years ago about what is and maybe you can refresh this, you weren't here at the time, but what is our role and what do we look at going forward perhaps with private storm retention? Since it is private, but however, it affects our public drainage as well. So what do we have in place that make sure those folks are keeping up their stormwater retention properly? Do we have any programs in place right now, any accountability measures in place, or is that something that we need to look at and review? What's your initial thought on that?
It is private, so it is ultimately their responsibility. When it gets into the public drainage, we're okay in the public part of it. You know, the county will maintain their drainage and is responsible for their drainage system. The challenge in this neighborhood too is it was designed and built under county regulations and older rules, so it doesn't have modern stormwater design to it. So there's going to be challenges. The road's low lying coming in, the road's at a low point, and it's the key point in. We annexed that. It was already designed and done that way, but it's a private system. And so that is not something that the city has responsibility for, the drainage.
Yeah. But I moved past Colony. I'm talking about just the city all together. Because if one gets backed up, does not a city pump have to also run through a private in order to keep going through? So
if their flooding was causing flooding to public property, there are emergency rights of entry and ways that you could. They weren't causing problems to public facilities.
Copy.
You know, if they flooded and then it flooded City Hall, we would figure out some way to stop that. Their issue was contained to their own private system. It didn't negatively impact public property going forward.
Okay. Awesome. That's all I got for right now.
Okay. Scott?
So, I agree with a lot of the assessments you guys have already brought up in the points. You know, the response to something like this is definitely not a day-to-day operational thing. And having worked with the city since 1989 and seen my fair share of named storms that have impacted us, I think there are some truths. One, you could never prepare for every scenario. It's just not going to happen. And number two, you can learn a little bit from every time you go through one of those things. And as a city, I know we've done that and we'll always continue to do that. You know, my first thought is, you know, I too want to commend all of our city staff and the resource partners. Unless you've worked through these things and you understand the personal stress that it puts on them to have to act outside of their day in and day out scope of responsibilities, it's tremendous, because at the same time they're trying to uphold their responsibilities and serve the community, they've got stresses and disasters going on in their homes. And before storms, after storms, and during. It used to impact me so personally when I was in law enforcement, that whenever we would have those named storms and the cone would get in a certain period of distance to us, I would automatically send my wife and kids out of the state. Not because I didn't think that they would do okay at home, but I needed to eliminate that from my stress and my world so I could focus strictly on the city and the job. And there's a lot that goes on in that. So my heart goes out to all of the city employees that have also suffered tremendous loss, while at the same time standing up and providing a really great level of service. There will be time to look at what can we do better. And again, some of that will be tabletop exercise, because the next storm won't look like this one. You know, there'll be a different thing, whether it's more wind, less rain, more rain, whatever. There will be more named storms. That's for sure that's going to happen. In terms of the amount of rainfall, we knew it was going to be a lot of rain. In my mind, I knew we had already had a lot of rain in September. And the one thing, if you lived in Florida for a long period of time, is the ground only takes so much. Once it's saturated, that is a huge problem. And for September, we saw a lot of rain. Where I live, you can't walk out in the yard, you know, before the storm and just not hear that sponge-like sound of squish, 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 squish all through your yard. So I was already really concerned about that. The tide is a major component that people, I think, really don't grasp and understand how much that plays a factor. We can, and I know I talked to Wayne, and we, you know, I think it was the Friday before the storm, we were already pumping down as much as we could pump down in anticipation, not even knowing for sure that it was going to impact our area, but it's, you know, trying to get as much pumped down as possible. Even then, I knew if we got even 10 inches of rain, 12 inches of rain, this was going to be a major impact. I'm not sold on how the rain stuff is truly measured. I don't know how you measure sideways rain. I get it if it's falling straight, but with the winds. But to what Drew was saying, you know, I've lived in the same neighborhood now going into my 18th year, and we've seen 6 named storms. This was number 6 since I've lived in that community. And we've never seen standing water in the street. And I measured 26 inches of standing water in the street. And what really stressed me about that was it was the first time, and I had not accounted for this. I learned something from this, that I realized now in my neighborhood, if we get that kind of rainfall, I am trapped in the neighborhood. Unless I swim out, I had no way to get out of the neighborhood. Moody Bridge cut me off from the city, even when the water was seated in our street, and I could, you know, if it got down to maybe 15 inches and we could drive through it, there were vehicles that were being swamped and towed out at Moody Bridge that looked like they had 4 or 5 feet. Some of them almost all the way up to the tops of the vehicles. Pioneer Trail, Tomoka Farms Road were not passable. So literally, we have a whole section of our city that was cut off. Unless you had significant high water vehicles, you were not getting out there. And so that was something that I learned, was because I had never factored into the, what if we're cut off and we can't leave here after the storm? So that was something that I learned. The debris removal thing that we're transitioning into, one of the things that I think it's really important for people to understand is that there are scenarios where we could remove debris quicker on our own, but it would be at a tremendous cost and a huge hit to our reserves as a city. A lot of cities don't sustain the funding and reserve status that we have as a city. Ours is extremely good. It's really good, and this is a perfect scenario as to why we as a council for many years now have tried to maintain a very significant reserve base, because we anticipate this debris removal process, when it's all said and done, to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10 million, Wayne? Is that about right? Maybe
Most
8
of
to
our
10,
hurricanes
somewhere
have
in there?
cost 7. This is probably going to be more, so maybe up to 9.
Yeah, so, you know, we're gonna pay that out as taxpayers in a city. We're gonna pay that out into a process that's relatively complex, but it is regulated by FEMA so that we can try to get back as much of that as possible. And as a city, we have done a really good job of getting that money back for the taxpayers. So what's the story say? Well, the reality of it is that there's going to be some timelines here that we're not going to like. It's not going to go as fast as everybody wants. Grass is going to die at the curb. Everybody get ready, because we've seen it. That's going to happen. That grass will grow back. But we're going to see piles that are going to be out there for significant amounts of times that are going to create some frustration. It's part of what we have to endure to be able to get those kind of dollars back into the reserve funds to keep the city where it needs to be in a secure, method. So,
Well, let's just face it, 26,000 places to pick up yard waste.
Yep.
That's a lot of places.
Yeah, and in some regard, this storm,
It's a massive
to
job.
what Rain was talking about, you know, if it was just tree limbs and things like that, people can get that stuff out to the curbs quicker. But in this regard, having that time frame where we're waiting to get started has been actually really good, because there's a lot of people that still need to rip out drywall, carpet, insulation, furniture, all those things, and get it to the location. And there's, you know, it's almost a punch to the gut when the truck goes by and you haven't had a chance to do that and get it out there. And now you feel like I missed my chance to get all this stuff hauled away. So in some regards, that's actually working out in a lot of people's favor, and they've still got a little bit of time, but they've got to get it out there. And I want to echo what Wayne was saying, is it has to stay separated. It just, those are FEMA regulations. That is not a City of Port Orange type of thing. There are FEMA monitors or contractors that will have to monitor this to make sure everything is being done in a very systematic way. The backups at the landfill are real. They are a source of frustration, but they are what they are. That's why we reserve, that's why we use these other locations where stuff can go to a temporary holding site, be processed, so that higher volumes can go in these trucks before they go to the landfill. 70 lift stations lost power. Wayne, real quick, and I've got a couple other things I want to touch on, but can you explain what a lift station is and what it does for those that, they hear this say that, but I don't know that everybody realizes what a lift station really is and what it does.
This will be fun for Lynn to grade my Sewer 101
Yeah.
class. She was actually funny.
Or Lynn can come up at this point.
We had a couple of people in the call center. It was really fun to watch Lynn, because she was teaching some of the call center people how sewer works, and we were actually talking to one of them. We had the comment that at some point he may be a future public utilities director, given how well she was teaching him how the sewer system worked, to help answer questions better. But it was impressive to watch. Not only was she helping out and getting things done, but she was actually taking the time to help people understand so they could answer the citizens' questions better. I'll do it really quick, and if I get it terribly wrong, Lynn will correct. But basically, a lot of the sewer runs in gravity, so it just kind of flows downhill in pipes. And when it gets to the low point, it goes into a well and sits there. Well, you got to get it to the treatment plant somehow or another. So this station then picks it up and shoots it back to the station. So it's being held there until it gets sent back to the station. And so if you can't send it back to the station because there's no power, gravity works without power. You've heard what goes downhill.
Right.
So it goes downhill on its own, but once it gets downhill, it's got to go back to the plant, and the stations are critical to getting that stuff back to the plant. You don't have power, it just sits there. Well, eventually these wells fill up, and if you don't have power, you don't have any way to get it out of there, and it can't just keep holding it. It's got to get out of there, or it'll fill up. So when they're out of power, you're trying to minimize the number of people flushing. You're trying to minimize. You get stormwater in these things. You do not want them filling up with stuff and coming out of there.
And
They're already inundated by stormwater, because everything was, a lot of them had 4 feet of water sitting on top of them.
And essentially what happens is in that gravity concept, when it can't be pumped vertical to be pumped to the treatment facility, it's eventually going to start backing up if the demand keeps flushing. If people keep flushing toilets, taking showers and all that stuff, that demand backs up. And so that was, to my point, was 70 lift stations is a tremendous amount of infrastructure that was inundated and impacted by this storm.
It's 3/4 of our lift stations.
Right. You can't outplan that. I mean, those are that's why you look at something like this and you realize how catastrophic and historic a storm is like this, and you are going to have impacts of backed up sewage that none of us want to see, but it's going to happen with a storm like this. And on top of that, you've got trees coming out of the ground, breaking pipes and all kinds of other infrastructure demands and things like that. But kudos to the response, and I know a lot of lift stations we can get, when they're out of power, we can get generators too, but not if they're underwater. When they're completely underwater and you can't hook a generator up to it, you've got to wait till that water is receded or pumped out. I do want to say a special thank you also to Florida Power and Light. I know we live in an age where we want everything yesterday, and with internet and Amazon and things like that, we've kind of become a culture where the speed of things happening is of great demand, and that's okay, having lived in Florida and seen some of these named storms, not this severe, but named storms, and worked in storm recovery in other areas, the pace at which FP&L and their resource partners are able to come back in now and get power back in such massive numbers is very impressive. And we got to see some of that this weekend with our meeting with FP&L and hear kind of what their capabilities are and what the investment that they've made in their infrastructure and portable systems that they can move around, and to see that they had a plan A, B, and C working in Port Orange was really impressive. I mean, for those that don't know, they had brought up a portable substation that in the event plan A, which was basically a portable relay component to get a lot of power back up and operational in that substation area behind the post office, they were prepared to put a portable system knowing that it would probably damage our street, and we were okay with that, but to be able to do that in the short term until they could rebuild that whole substation, that was pretty impressive. So I felt really good about that, even though I know a lot of folks are just now coming back, 5 days post-storm. 5 days is pretty good. One of the things you hear pre-storm from your local governments, your news outlets, everybody says, if you're going to live in Florida, you're going to have storms, you need to be prepared to go without power for 2 to 7 days. And I think that used to be closer to 2 weeks. And so they've just, kudos to FP&L and their organization and their resource partners and what they're able to do and move that kind of stuff along. It is pretty impressive. Wayne, when you have the opportunity, if you could add this to your list, I just don't want this to go without proper recognition by this council, but I would like to see us put together a thank you letter for a lot of the resource agencies that have responded to our call, like FWC, for example, and others, and just a formal thank you letter from the city that all of the council can sign, and I want to get those to those organizations. And that doesn't have to be done right away, and I know there's quite a few on that list, but a lot of those things are happening on the fly, and it's great when somebody calls and says, what do you need? And you tell them what you need, and they say, we got that. We'll send you whatever you need, boats and high water vehicles and all those kinds of things, and that's pretty great. And if nothing else, I want to make sure that we convey our gratitude and thanks on behalf of our residents and citizens, because that type of stuff, to see that is very impressive, and it means a lot to us. So and I think that's all I've got for right now. Like I said,
For now.
Yeah, for now. I can't express enough the gratitude that I have for our city employees and what they have to do pre-storm, during the storm, and after the storm, and they're still out there doing it. And they're going to be doing it for a long day. I've run into a couple of them, and they know there are very long days and long weeks still ahead. But they're happy to do it. They're prideful to do it, and they're trying to go as fast as they can. They are going to make some mistakes. That's expected. That's okay. They'll learn from those, and they'll keep on going. But their heart and their passion and their drive is all in the right place, and that's all I can ask for right now. So I much appreciate it to all of them. How about you, Mayor? You got anything you want to add?
Oh, I don't know. It amazes me that the number of hurricane veterans that we have in our community. This was my 7th storm in my current residence. And I can tell you every single one of those storms certainly has their own dynamics, their own personality. And it was interesting to see this one, the way it shifted within the cone in a short period of time, the way it came ashore even stronger than we thought it would be, further south than we thought it would be, but still within the cone. The way it came at us and then kind of arced around us to stay with us. Knowing that Jacksonville was still getting hit with winds when it was making impact on South Carolina because the size of it, you could have fit Charlie inside of it. It's been said before, but no two of these are alike, but they're massive. There were a number of people, and we talked about it in advance, that I think kind of fall on the side of, well, it's going to go west, or it's, they don't prepare the way they should, and sometimes they pay for that. What happens in that case, and I have one on my list of thank yous, I've got to thank our businesses, because there are a lot of them that invested in infrastructure, generators, things like that, so that they can get back on and going. Publix, I speaking with their general manager before, during, and when they reopened. I think on Friday, those days all ran together on me. this almost feels like day 7 of last Tuesday. I can't even tell you what happened anymore. The commitment, they were bringing in people from out of the area to staff their stores, so that we a lot of times take for granted the commitment of the businesses to help get us back on our feet. So maybe you don't have a week's supply of food in your house. Well, it didn't matter because of what they do. We can't always take that for granted, and I think that's another lesson that comes out of this for a lot of us, because whether it be power or being, and I can tell you it's not fun to be without power for several days, but you're wondering, do you have enough water, do you have enough food, the things that happen. I think all of us as individuals have had some learning experiences out of this, and that was one of the things I noticed. There are a lot of people that prepared very well. I traveled the city day and night nearly every day of this to see what's going on, and I was not surprised by what I saw. I saw a lot of people helping people, as good as any community that there is. And I'm a little worn out, but I can tell you that it is an extreme source of pride for me to see that happen exactly the way I expected it, because I know the quality of the people that live in this community. It's a lot of the reasons why they choose to live here, and I appreciate that greatly. I am very grateful for our own people who have worked tirelessly from the top all the way down. Like I said, none of us are perfect. We don't always get it right, but dang it, we're going to try until we do. And the response has been terrific. I was at the site of a fire. I was at the site of flooded homes. I've been at the site of a flooded community. I've been at various the things I've seen. I hope I never see again in Port Orange. I really do. There's a lot of suffering going on out there, and it's continuing. I think that the first thing everybody wants to hear is that message of hope. Yeah, they want to hear me say we're going to rebuild bigger and better, and well, we are. But it's not just about replacing and repairing and improving infrastructure. It's about the community itself, the hearts and minds of people, what can we do for each other so that we're all stronger together as individuals and people, and as a community, as families. That matters even more than anything that we can rebuild. And certainly the city and the people up here and the people that work for it, that is part of the commitment as well. And I just want to reiterate that for everybody who's listening to and watching right now, that we recognize this is a whole lot more about simply we're going to rebuild a structure or infrastructure or this control system or whatever it is. It goes well beyond that. We know it, and that's what we're committed to, without a doubt. Wayne, a couple of questions I had. Just want to make sure I hit all my notes because a lot of them have already been hit. I said Parks and Rec is well on its way and ahead of schedule. Glad to hear that. We had an event coming up Saturday. If you could find out for me that the Festival of Fall that the Love of Shopping is doing at City Center, and I very much would like and hope that we can execute that, because I think that everybody needs those distractions. Come Saturday, it'd be nice if you could update me and let me know if we're able to execute that. Certainly I know that she said she has 80 vendors and the like, and she's very curious. But more than that, I just think that these community events that happen at City Center, we have roughly 30 of them every year. Everybody knows that Family Days has a couple of large ones. We actually have over 30 different events every year at City Center where we close part of the street for different things that go on. This is a very active place, and I can't wait to be able to bring that back to people. Family Days actually lucked out because they had a vendor who couldn't execute the carnival, not this past week, the weekend before, when we were starting to get into hurricane mode. So they had to reschedule to the weekend coming up on Halloween at the end of the month. So I can't wait to the end of this month when we can start talking about, hey, remember when we're all getting together at family days later on this month. That's the goal for me, to be able to relax and we can all talk about, yeah, we got through this, and yeah, I still have this challenge, but you know, I'm grateful for this and that. So those are the things that I look forward to. That's, to me, what makes Port Orange special, and I'm looking forward to that. We've talked ad nauseum about Hurricane Ian up here, and this is so much more about just passing the emergency resolution for spending to do what we need to do, which was actually what this agenda item's about. So at this point, if anyone here wants to speak to anything in regards to Hurricane Ian, we're just going to listen to you. We're not going to give feedback or anything, because there's so many things we don't have answers to yet. But if anybody wants to speak right now, they get 3 minutes. Who would like to go first?
I don't want to take my 3 minutes for that. I want to take it for something else, but I just want to make a couple comments about what the Mr. Clark mentioned.
Come on up, Wendell.
I'm Wendell Delarosa, Port Orange. I think you're underestimating the, when I believe you said $34 million in property damage.
54.
If I'm a little slow, and I was around 500 years ago, and I'd say this was a bad storm. I'm looking at houses alone. You mentioned Sleepy Hollow. To replace that house that I'm going to be working with code enforcement to come down and condemn the house, you're looking at, to rebuild that house, you're probably $400,000 to $500,000 for one house. So if you're talking 600 houses, that right there is $300 million just in houses. I know a gentleman that lost his $2 million house, his Ferrari, his whole collection of classic cars. So I think we're underestimating, personally, that's just my opinion. And as for storm backage, sewage did come up through the city in Sleepy Hollow, and it did get inside of a lot of those residents. So those stain on the walls of all these people's houses, that I personally was out there with a little Superman on my chest playing a hero, trying to help people, and because they're relatives, and there was human feces floating in the residence. The stain on the wall is yellow for a reason. We know it's yellow. It's the number one. The number two is brown. So you can tell it's what it is. It is what it is. It was horrific. I could go on for a long time. I listened to all you guys. I think a little bit more of preventive maintenance, what we call in the government work. I wrote the doctrine on defense support to civil authorities for events like this with NORAD, NORTHCOM. They're monitoring from the air, from satellites, from space. They're doing so much things that you're not even aware of. That preventive maintenance on those lift stations and having a generator on standby already before it floods probably would have been a lot more beneficial, and after action. And I want to praise that the city did a lot to help. Everybody came together like after 9/11. I saw that personally. My back, neck, hair, my hair hurts. That's how I don't get out this much. But just some comments I wanted to make about I think your estimate is a little low, especially going to FEMA, the feds, to reimburse you. I personally think it should be looked at with a broader brush, and that's my personal opinion, because 600 homes, that's a lot more than that. So I'll defer for my other 3 minutes on some other topics, but on this issue, you guys nailed it pretty good. So
Thanks, Wendell.
I'll talk again.
Thanks, man.
Who else? Back to council. Just one thing I wanted to add. This is not the last time we'll be talking about Hurricane Ian as a topic of discussion. Certainly, I know people want to be able to come and let us know things. But as a council, we'll talk about it. As a staff, they'll still take your calls, and there's still a lot going on. So we will be here for you well beyond just what we've already done. So give us a call. We're accessible. Any other comments, council?
Real quick one.
Go ahead.
Just in regard, Scott mentioned something about always learning something, and it was very comforting. I had a call with the police chief asking about our nursing homes. A couple years ago during that was a very big problem, and it was nice to see that that wasn't not an issue this time with lack of power and needing a bunch of rescues, things of that nature. So one of the areas in which we've learned and done, I say we as a city, but people have learned and done a better job of. Also, just a word to the wise, a lot of, and I'm sure, Mayor, I'm sure you were probably going to discuss this in your regular comments, but for folks to be careful about scammers and things of that nature, going door to door, soliciting, going to promise you a new roof and all that other stuff. I mean, go through the proper channels, through your insurance provider, through your carriers. As long as it may take a long time, it'd be a lot more, have to be a lot more patient and dealing with that. But trying to shortchange everything and go around the process, not a wise move. So be diligent and be cautious in that regard.
Very good. Anything else? On the item, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Approval of tonight's agenda, if you would pull item 13 from consent and make a motion to approve the agenda for the evening with that.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the item, agenda for the evening with item 13 removed from consent. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mayor,
I don't see 13.
I don't
in the
see
consent.
13 as,
13
I see
council
13 as
comments.
council comments.
Item 13 from consent agenda, right?
Item 13 from consent.
That's the
I have
Wage contract.
revised final in front of me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, approval of ratification of
The
the
Wage contract.
Yep, that,
Yeah, it was item 12 a
it's
couple
showing
days
item
ago.
12 to me still. Oh, well,
Look on the outline.
I'm on, all right, I got it on the website now, I have the right one, so that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
May I have anyone here wish to speak to anything that's on the consent agenda? Anybody but Robert? No, come on up, Robert. Good to see you.
I just want my 3 minutes whenever that is.
Shortly.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North. With regard to item 8A, waiver of bidding requirements. Just the idea that you would waive bidding requirements seems a little problematic to me. But more than that, this kayak, paddleboard, and small sailboat rentals and launch ramp represents a recreational opportunity for the citizens of Port Orange. And I therefore have a feeling that we should be bringing that in-house. The idea, I understand that it's sort of seasonal, so you're going to have a little bit of problem with personnel, but I would hope that we could create job descriptions that were flexible enough so that people could be moved in and out to amongst the different jobs that need to be done. But generally speaking, I would say that if we're getting a service cheaper because they're paying people less or they're not providing benefits, I don't think that's a positive. I think having full-time workers that represent the city, I think that's what we should be having. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Good to see you. Anyone else on the consent agenda items? There being none, may I have a motion to approve items 7 through 12 on consent?
So moved.
Second.
Items 7 through 12, we have a motion and a second for approval. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Item 13 is the approval and ratification of the National Association of Government Employees, otherwise known as NAGE, 2022 through 2025 Collective Bargaining Agreement. The recommended motions to approve the collective bargaining agreement negotiated between the City of Port Orange and NAGE with the terms, a term of October 1st of 2022 through September 30th of 2025. Can I have a motion for approval?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. The item's open and on the floor for discussion. The reason why I had that pulled is that while I think the item belongs on consent, I thought it was a very interesting timing that the city staff worked so hard to get that done. And so many of the employees covered by this contract were taken care of with this contract, and boom, wow, did we see their value right away with this hurricane. And I just wanted to thank everybody involved in getting this done for our employees. And I wanted to just put my opinion forward that I think that this is very well deserved. And if anybody doubts the value of our people, I think that we just proved it in the last few days. Any other comments? There being none,
Says it.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Public participation, Mr. Wendell Della Rosa.
First again, Wendell Della Rosa, I'd just like to say thanks for everything everybody did. I talked to most of all of you up here know me except Reed. I've seen you sing when we've met.
Yeah, I've met you a
as the
few
new
times.
city manager, we've met briefly on a couple things. Everybody came together, did a lot. It's praise in public and admonish in private. So I'm going to get with the mayor offline, and probably each one of you offline. There was one item that was a little bit disturbing. That it's not that big, but I'll get with you on it after the fact, and you'll understand. I'm here today on that the area of 750 Horseman Drive. I now have, I live in a big place out next to the sheriff of the county. He moved in behind me about 3 years ago in a little small duplex, and I live in a big cul-de-sac at the big house, the big property. Live alone, 2 dogs, and me, and everybody in here thinks that I now have a strong affiliation and connection with some political figures, and was recently down at Mar-a-Lago, Florida. And I have my political views. Other people have their political views. This is America. For nearly 4 decades, I fought for those views, and you can have your views of freedom of speech, rights, religion, etc. But I'm gonna let you know right now, yours truly, standing in front of you, has been deemed by the courts as mentally ill and unable to care for himself, and he needs mental health evaluation. Court systems can be weaponized, and believe it or not, they are. Politics is a blood sport. I can make a statement, and if you go on YouTube and say, this guy shot and killed the Port Orange lieutenant, this guy's been Baker acted, this guy is a rapist, he's a murderer. If it's on Facebook, it's true. So you're going to see some fancy stuff going on about yours truly. My 4 decades of service to the country will come to an end, because I've had it about up to here. My fund meter's pegged. I'm not upset about it. I'm a little frustrated, but I was leaving at the beginning of next year when I believe a new administration will take over. The brakes will be put on in November. Swearing in, I'll be on the top of the Capitol building watching the fireworks for New Year's, and I'll be at the swearing in for U.S. Senate and Congress on January 3rd. You'll see some stuff in the newspapers and stuff. Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. Have a good day.
Thanks, Wendell.
Thanks, Wendell.
Robin, did I have any others?
That's it, sir.
Okay, appreciate you. Council comments. Start with Chase.
Said them earlier. Good.
All right. Reed?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add after what we talked about earlier.
Drew?
Just, I mean, we can just go on and on about the appreciation for our team here in Port Orange, and I just can't say it enough how grateful I am and we are as a city that they're on our team.
Amen.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, we'll go through these quickly. I've got 18.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Most important is, not most important, just important. I do want to apologize. There are a lot of folks out there that messaged me, texted me, left voicemails, sent emails, whatever, and I'm still trying to get back to a lot of those, as you guys can all imagine. Interestingly enough, last night, I heard this noise on my phone. I'm like, man, what is that? And messages were downloading to my phone
Yes.
last night
Yes.
that were like days old already.
Yes.
Yep.
So I apologize for that, and for those that did, I will get back to you just through the process. So sorry about that. Chase brought up a great point, and I don't think it can be. We can't say it enough. In this new phase that we're in right now, post storm, I am really, really worried about the scamming to our residents, and we need to look out for our residents, and the residents need to look out for each other. It's gonna happen. Not a knock on any one particular trade, but one of the things that I've already seen is these roofing companies that I've never heard of showing up in trucks with area code numbers on the trucks that I don't even know where that's at. It's not Volusia County, I can tell you that. They seem well coordinated in that respect, but I'm very leery. I've seen them up on tops of roofs already, where visually from the street, there's nothing wrong with the roof. I mean, at all, and they're lifting shingles up and doing things like that. And so, and maybe there is. I'm not a roofer, but my point to that is that I agree with Chase wholeheartedly that our residents need to be very cautious. I'm a believer in contacting somebody that you want to come and service you and evaluate your need versus somebody knocking out your door going, hey, you got a bad roof. Be very cautious of that kind of stuff. So whatever we can do, I want to point our residents not only to our social media pages, but the county social media pages. I've already seen several things posted on how to identify people when they're properly licensed versus not properly licensed. And also, if anybody has a question about somebody who's offering a service, our community development team can be reached out to, and they can tell you whether or not they're licensed. If you can't tell, they can tell you. And they can also answer questions on permitting, because a lot of times these folks will show up and say, well, you don't even need a permit for that. I can get started on it today, and if you'll do it for cash, I'll cut the price in half. The next thing you know, you've given somebody a bunch of cash, and they say, well, let me run down, grab a few more supplies, and they're gone just like that. You'll never see them again. So just be very cautious of that. And that's all I got, Mayor.
Okay.
Well,
Can I, real quick, excuse me?
Come on.
In regards to that, to piggyback, can I just make a request of staff maybe to put something out to outline exactly that? Here's how you can tell something is a scam, and here's a number you can call to confirm any solicitations that are going around.
Yes, sir. We have some documents that we've done in past hurricanes that help you identify when you have an unlicensed contractor. We'll make sure that's out constantly.
And they've got they've already got some of that, actually quite a bit of it on our city Facebook page as well, and the county's got some good resource stuff on there as well too.
Yep. Like and share, people. Reed, you have something to add?
That jogged my memory of something we didn't cover during the beginning, is that, for anyone who was affected, make sure you are paying attention to FEMA. You can follow them on Facebook. They've today they updated, they've approved more than $70 million for Florida residents, survivors, to jumpstart the recovery efforts. And you can go on, I think it's disasterassistance.gov. I can't exactly remember. I was trying to find it here on the laptop. But anyway, there's a lot of people who've been affected, and right now they're cleaning out their furniture and their carpets and everything else. I know we all got a lot on our minds, but if you were affected, they will send someone out, and they're trying to do that quickly. They brought in people from all over the country who are going in and doing these inspections, and they're trying to get people money to help them. Even if you don't have flood insurance, they're trying to assist residents. So absolutely make sure that you either call that number that's on their social media or on their website, visit there, and get that assistance, because it is out there and it is available to you, and it would be a shame not to take advantage of that opportunity to recoup some of your losses.
There are already over 15,000 this morning, 15,000 claims in Volusia already filed. If you want the information on how to apply online or the phone number to call, you can visit the Port Orange Facebook page, Port Orange City Hall.
Yep.
You can visit the city website, or you can go to the Port Orange Mayor Twitter feed, and those links are there.
Awesome.
Wayne, one other thing, that going through all my notes earlier, I forgot to ask about, had somebody ask me, my house is flooded, and normally my RV, I've got to have it gone in 72 hours. Is code enforcement going to be all over me since this is what I've got to live in now? So have we signed an executive order addressing that, or what are we going to, how are we going to help people with that situation?
We have not at this point. There is a precedent during COVID where we put that in place here to allow for people who were trying to isolate away from people who might be ill. The community development staff, code enforcement staff, and Robin are working together to put together something with parameters that will work for this.
So we're working on it.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
So it'll be a little bit different than the one that was done for COVID, because it'll need to be
COVID, hurricane, two different
hurricane
things, I guess.
damage and less time. Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay, that takes care of that portion of the meeting. Item 15, domestic violence awareness. Adele, come on up. Let's find better reasons, right? A proclamation of the City of Port Orange, whereas domestic violence remains a pervasive issue across Volusia County in the United States and the world, with implications for personal and community health. And whereas domestic violence does not discriminate and touches all communities, regardless of age, race, disability, gender, identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas in Volusia County, approximately 10 people per day, right here in Volusia County, 10 people per day are physically abused by an intimate partner, and the need for safe housing continues to be rated as survivors' most urgent needs. And whereas the crime of domestic violence violates members of our community's privacy, security, and their humanity in the form of physical, emotional, sexual, and psychological and economic abuse. And whereas research shows that by creating communities where people are connected, supportive, and care for one another can reduce these incidents of domestic violence. And whereas every day in Port Orange, individuals and organizations play a part in supporting people impacted by domestic violence, providing services including therapeutic, legal, educational, housing, advocacy, and medical services. Now therefore, I, Donald Dobernett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Port Orange, and I urge all our residents to become aware of this epidemic and become involved in efforts to prevent and respond to domestic violence and recognize the impact of domestic violence on our community. And with the seal of the city and my signature, it is so declared. Bernadette, thank you very much. Appreciate you. So, item 16, Environmental Advisory Board report.
He's not here.
We can reschedule that. I'm fine with that. Item 17 is first reading of ordinance number 2022-27. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Sixth Amendment to the Master Development Agreement for Crystal Lake Planned Unit Development, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance 2022-27.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Wayne, why is this back before us?
Your community development director, Mr. Berman, will explain this to you.
All right.
Tim Berman, Community Development. Yes, this was approved by council late summer this year. However, when it came time to recording it and getting all the signatures, One of the property owners decided to back out of it. This property owner signed the application, authorized staff to move forward at the last minute, pulled his request to be included. So since we're removing that signature page and that legal description from the ordinance, we have to bring it back before City Council for first reading and then eventually second reading. Also, too, we want to keep our streak of having a Crystal Lake PUD item on a council agenda. So we're going about 4 months strong now.
So it's one,
But staff is recommending approval then.
One
Just one
property.
property owner.
Okay.
Other than, and staff is recommending approval
One of
of it.
six.
Do we know what the record is?
I don't know what the record is now.
I think we said it here.
We've said it here, okay.
Now, the way it's set up, this is the one furthest to the west, so it's not somebody in the middle.
Correct. It is
Okay.
close to the Barnes dentist.
Yeah,
On that property
Barnes,
then.
okay.
It's a very small, narrow property too.
Okay. Council, anybody have any questions or comments on this one? Would anyone from the public like to speak to the item? There being none, council, final comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Public hearing portion of the meeting is now open. We're on to the regular agenda. Item 18 is ordinance number 2022-25, which is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 18, Article 6, Divisions 1 and 2 to modify the permitting process and regulations related to peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2022-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Wayne, who's presenting on this one?
The city clerk.
Outstanding.
Hi. All right, Robin Fenwick, City Clerk. So if you guys will
Thanks for telling us who you are.
probably, in case you didn't already know.
For the record.
For the record. So you probably remember in 2019, before something called a pandemic happened to us, we had a solicitor out and didn't necessarily follow all of our rules. Surprise. So we had a workshop and you guys gave us direction on updating our ordinance, and so we are resurrecting that after the pandemic and have brought that forward to you. So the changes include a couple of some minor updates and clarifications, but also a specific list of the reasons why an application would be denied, and also the process for revoking a permit was very, very old. So we've updated that and made it much more clear. So hopefully you guys feel that way too. So if you have any questions, Matt and I, and Chief, if he's still here, yep, we all worked on that together. So I'm sure we can answer any questions you might have.
Very
Council, comments, questions?
Very timely agenda
Yeah.
item.
Indeed. No questions? We got Scott's comment. Anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions? Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Additional items, item 19, City Attorney Report.
Nothing further than that.
Excellent report, thank you. City Manager Report.
I'm going to have to break the trend and not have an excellent report. I do want to follow up. Well, one, first of all, when Robin got that done, if you notice, I referred to her as being in charge of the department of getting stuff done. So we were finding gradually old things that were not completed and moving them forward. So you'll start seeing more of her in the getting stuff done.
Good.
So as we catch up on things that between COVID and other stuff, you'll probably see her speak more often than just telling you you're out of order or something. The other thing on the hurricane, the one thing I didn't do, so early on in the hurricane, the mayor and I were doing with a couple of us, we did a Facebook. It wasn't live, but we put a post out. You had mentioned that I had the unfortunate luck of having been in 15 or plus or so hurricanes through my career in local government, including 6 of the last 7 years in a row. One of the things that I had done through all that unfortunate time in hurricanes, though, is I've been able to watch communities and how they approach storms. And I've watched hurricanes and EOCs run by administrative people like myself, and I've watched them run by public safety personnel. And one of the things that we did this year in the storm, I made a conscious effort, was the incident commanders at our EOC during the times of greatest stress. We put our fire chief and our police chief in charge of the EOC. So Chief Wolfing and Chief Marino, who both were hired recently, are who were in charge. In my opinion, when you deal with high-stress situations, when you have lives on the line, property on the line, these trained public safety personnel, you're not going to find better people, better qualified. My role is to assist in communicating with you, communicating with the public, but when you have an incident like that, you want somebody who's trained to handle that, and I didn't thoroughly enough thank both of the two chiefs for their leadership role overnight, all day long, hours of time, while they had also their own families and their own damage to house. But with those two took us through the storm and deserve a tremendous amount of credit. I'm very proud to have been the one to hire both of them. Made me look really good, and both of them worked extremely hard and deserve a tremendous amount of credit for what they did during this storm.
So they've earned that responsibility for the next storm?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
So Chief Wolfing and Chief Marino need to come forward right now, please, then.
Briefly.
This is Wayne's fault.
Wayne did it.
And if nothing else, this is a wonderful example of you get impacted personally. I know Chief Wolfing is missing a window right now because of the storm. And you know where he was before that window was even cared for? Serving this community. And I'd like everybody here present to give these two gentlemen a hand. And then you give each other a hand. You guys got anything you want to add?
It was a team effort from us. We did the, I want to say the easy part, but I know my fire guys worked their butts off. 600 calls in that time frame is a lot of calls, and the police officers did the same. Public utilities, every department, every employee stepped up, and the end result was worked out in our favor.
Personally, I saw a lot of things from both your departments, well, from all our departments, but it was watching 4 units at a fire that was difficult to fight, but protecting an entire neighborhood, and at the same time being worried about how much water they're using because the neighborhood was had been underwater. They weren't just worried about protecting the fire, that one property and the adjacent properties. They had a very holistic approach. I thought it was terrific. I was highly impressed. It was wonderful work.
I was able, right when the EOC was actually being activated, that very first moment, I happened to have the opportunity to go and stop by. And when I can tell you that these two, as well as a lot of the other staff, literally didn't waste a minute. The minute after 7 o'clock, when they were supposed to get to it, they were getting to it. There wasn't a lot of small talk and all that other kind of stuff that you might see in certain types of situations and operations. They were on it, and I appreciate what you guys do. And I'm kind of curious, like if they might have had some kind of way to flood that Moody Bridge thing so I couldn't come back. Because I know, like, you know, you don't want a bunch of elected officials in the way at the EOC, and all of a sudden I can't even get back to it if I wanted to for days. So I don't know how they pulled that off, but maybe that was part of their command strategy.
I think that's why they flooded Country Walk.
Right. You noticed that, right? So, a great job. Very much appreciate it. You guys
Gentlemen.
both have the nature for doing that for sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you both, and thank you, staffs.
I'd like to add that this group up here, the team, the city, we're fortunate and blessed to have you two guys leading our public safety departments. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too, Joe.
I said those two guys. Come on now.
Wayne, before the mayor leaves your spot here on the agenda, do we have any idea? Did water overflow the railroad track trestles on Spruce Creek? Do we know that yet, or?
I
haven't seen any pictures of that. I was just curious. And
I don't believe anybody from damage assessment saw that, so
Okay.
I'm not aware of it.
All right.
If it did, maybe it took some of that debris out of the bottom.
Wayne, you have anything else to add?
Yes, sir.
Okay. City Council Committee reports over to CTBO. Councilman Foley.
That meeting was canceled due to the hurricane.
Shock
Perfect.
of shocks.
Great report.
General Employee Pension Fund.
Ditto.
Another excellent report. With that, council is,
95.
we get together again in 2 weeks, hopefully with a lot more good stuff to talk about, and I can't wait for that to be able to be the case. With that, Port Orange, I'm very proud of the way you all have reacted. I know we've got a long ways to go, but we're going to all do it together. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.